I'm so sorry, Tariq.
What the did you do?
I told Noma that you were threatening her daughter. We're working together and I have a future with her, so couldn't let that happen.
Thanks to Effie, I've moved my daughter to safety.
Mystery secrets and unanswered questions are some of the things we love when it comes to the Power universe, especially Power Book 2 Ghost. And in Ghost, Effie is probably the most mysterious character. Only recently did we learn a bit about her past when she opened up to Tariq on the way to the scene of the crime, where she thought she got rid of Lauren. But still, till this very day there are a lot of unknowns, unanswered questions and theories when it comes to Effie's character. So in this breakdown, we're going to be running through an evolution of Josefina Morales, how she's all about survival and independence. We're also going to run through a backstory in terms of what we know about her relationships with Tariq St Patrick, Kane and also the Tejadas. We're then going to take a look at where we are with the storyline and a few clues and theories I think they've left for us to ponder when it comes to Effie Morales in Power Book 2 Ghost Season 4. Now, Effie's character was introduced to us way back in Season 6 of Power. She was introduced to Tariq through Braden, after they began to enter her territory at Choate. Instantly we began to learn a bit about her background, who she was, her struggles, what she's been through and where she saw her future.
We come here so we don't have to have that kind of life. Be better.
Let me guess. You can barely pay for your books. Your phone screen's all cracked. Shoes old. Will your laptop even make it to graduation?
Unfortunately, sometimes we don't have an option of where we grow up, the environment we're born into or the struggles we face. For Effie, she found Choate as a blessing and an opportunity, so they didn't have to live the other life that Tariq wanted to live, because just like Tariq, she also knows what the consequences are. We all know and saw how Tariq lost his twin sister Raina St. Patrick, but so did Effie. She also lost a sibling, and that's something they could bond over.
Ever since my brother died, my mom is sober like 2 hours in the morning when she wakes up. Rest of the day is a fucking shit show.
Effie's mom was said to be a mess. She's also lost a brother in a robbery gone wrong, which is a mystery question they still haven't answered, and it is something we do need to be mindful of heading into Season 4, which I do have a theory on later on. But without her brother, and a lack of relationship with her parents, which was reaffirmed again in a conversation with Diana in Season 2, Effie had to fend for herself. As time went on, we saw Tariq and Effie grow closer, where they started to develop feelings for each other. But just like how it is in the street game, and how Effie's character is all about survival, she never lost sight of her end goal. She was here at Choate to build a better future for herself, and selling product was the only way she could pay for education, because let's not forget, she didn't come from a privileged circumstance like Tariq, Braden, or even Lauren. So Tariq selling product in her territory meant he was in the way of her future, just like Breeze was in the way of Ghost's future, how Ghost ended up being in the way of Tariq's future, and just like Tariq said many times over in Power Book 2 Ghost.
Why do you care so much about Zeke, huh?
I keep Zeke out of trouble. I stay in school. I'm gonna do anything to protect my future and Monet.
Anyone or anything in the way of their futures, they had to handle the situations by any means necessary. So despite Effie growing feelings for Tariq, which I do think she did have, I don't think she was lying about her feelings. She never lost sight of her bigger picture. Now this is another mystery question around Effie's character, which we've never really got answers to.
The Connect got better shit than my old guy and he stopped answering his phone a while back, so
I'm not really sure whether we will get the answers to who Effie's Connect was back in Power. I do think that ship might have sailed in terms of that particular storyline. I do get it would be kind of nice to know, and it is something that they could always come back around to, but I'm not too sure whether they will. But in regards to a relationship with her moms and her brother, just keep them in the back of your minds. I am going to come back around to them later on. In Ghost Season 1, she didn't play that much of a role, although there were a few Easter eggs. We saw a return in the very first episode when Tariq went to get product from her, which is where we learned she was studying at Yale, but very much like she was doing at Choate, shifting weight to pay for her education. She then later returned in 108, when Yale were playing Stansfield, and where we heard something that would later turn out to be kind of true.
You wearing a wire? I'm sorry, is your room bugged?
Both of these moments from Seasons 1 and 2 were a bit of a foreshadow for what we saw play out in Season 3, where Tariq did actually record her saying, yeah, she made the move on Lauren on her own. Now in Season 1, the problem that Tariq had was, he had his back against the wall. He was trying to study and keep on top of his own grades while writing papers for Zeke. He was in a new partnership with the Tejadas and constantly looking over his shoulder because of the threat of Kane. There was also 2-Bit breathing down his neck, all while trying to handle the situation with his mom's court case and paying for Davis McLean. This meant that he had no choice but to turn and trust people that had burned him before. But with Tasha's help and advice, he used a similar tactic to what she used with Ghost, get Effie to trust him instead of the other way around.
You are a monster, Tariq. We both are.
Now, I mentioned earlier that these were two characters who had very similar mindsets in terms of doing what was necessary to protect their futures, and this was another. Effie understood Tariq because she accepted the fact she was a monster the night she turned him in at Chode. So despite Tariq being able to show others this innocent side to him in season 1, where he could shift all the blame onto his father calling him the monster, deep down, he knew the truth and so did Effie. They were both monsters. Now, in season 2 of Ghost, Tariq had no option but to lean on Effie and also Brayden, even more so than he did in season 1. At least in Ghost season 1, he had Tasha on the other side of the phone, but in season 2, he had to bury any ties that he had with his mother because she was in WITSEC, and he also had to get rid of any evidence that could tie him to the Jabari murder. That meant for the first time ever, he was on his own. He had no Ghost, no Uncle Tommy, Kanan was gone, and so was the person he trusted the most, Tasha. But this is where Effie and Brayden stepped in. They actually held it down for Tariq, especially when he got roped up by the feds for the murder of Jabari and Ramirez.
I mean, it was him and me, Effie. I had no choice.
You did what you had to do.
You did what you had to do.
Now, I mentioned earlier on how there were a few clues to tell us Tariq would end up recording a conversation with Effie, and this was another Easter egg. The way Effie had her hair in braids, some of the lines that she spoke, it was a callback to Jukebox. So was this moment when Effie was showing Diana how to hustle. Very similar to the young Jukebox, Effie was also boosting clothes, but just in a more modern way with stolen credit cards, so those were a few nods to Juke. Now, when it comes to Effie's relationship with Diana, they didn't exactly start off in the best of places, but with Effie being in a position which Diana wanted to be in terms of hustling and going to school, we did see Effie kind of mentor Diana. However, it wasn't just about learning and hustling when it came to these two. Tangled in between was Tariq St Patrick, so we have to remember across seasons 1 and 2, Tariq was involved in a love triangle between Diana, Lauren, and Effie.
You know, as soon as I seen that girl, I knew she was going to be a bad influence on you. Like, when you're with her, you have to be a version of yourself that you're not.
At that particular moment, Tariq was growing closer to Lauren, because very similar to how Angela brought out the positive side in Ghost, Lauren kind of did the same with Tariq. But I agree with what Effie said. When he was with Lauren, he had to be a different version of himself, and some may say that's exactly what Ghost had to do when it came to Angela. He had to live this double life of a regular civilian, but behind the fancy Tom Ford suits, deep down, he knew who he was, a drug-dealing murderer. The same also goes for Tariq, which is exactly what Bash told him, and the truth definitely hurts. But Effie understood who Tariq was and accepted him for who he was. With Lauren, it was complicated because he had to lie. With Diana, it was also complicated because she was Monet's daughter. But when it came to Effie, I do feel there was a bit of balance. They were two characters who were very much alike. They understood each other, they had very similar visions for their future, and Tariq didn't have to lie or pretend to be someone else. It's also why Effie kind of warned Diana away from Tariq, which I do think served two purposes. She was right when she said getting close to someone like Tariq will only mean you get hurt, which is also something Monet warned Diana of in season 1. But I also feel like Effie only said that because she didn't want competition when it came to Tariq. I think as much as she knows how Tariq is out for himself, just like she is, Effie definitely wanted him for herself.
I was very impressed with your papers discussing whether or not the ends justify the means.
And I was surprised by the lines you were willing to cross to get to a specific outcome.
Now, one of the big themes across season 2 of Ghost was, does the end justify the means? When you're talking about does the end justify the means, you're talking about the lines you have to cross or the lines you are willing to cross to get to a specific outcome. So in essence, does the outcome justify your actions? If the move that you make is to protect yourself or the ones you care about, would the end justify the means? This was Effie's thinking when it came to the whole Lauren situation. She knew Lauren was a snitch, albeit she was lied to by Professor Milgram. We do have to make that point. Carrie Milgram did lie to her over and over again. She forced her into wearing the wire when you could tell Lauren felt really uncomfortable. But with her being a threat to Tariq and also the entire drug network around him, that meant she was a threat to Effie's future, as well as everybody else's. And we all know what that means. Effie had to take care of the threat, because Tariq was definitely caught up in his feelings. Now there is also another angle to Effie's move with Lauren. Very similar to how she told Diana to stay away from Tariq, I do think her move also had something to do with her feelings for Tariq. I do think she wanted to protect her future, but I also feel like in the back of her mind, she knew if she got rid of Lauren and out the way, then nobody would be in the way of her and Tariq. So I do think she was looking out to protect her future, but she was also selfishly thinking about herself and Tariq.
Look, you found the game, okay? The game ain't find you. See, where I'm from, that shit comes straight to your front door, but you made a choice. Way back at Show and again here.
Now, if he knew that Braden didn't have what it takes to get rid of Lauren, had it been someone else who he didn't know or was close to Tariq St Patrick, then maybe he would have pulled the trigger, especially because he was willing to pull the trigger in the jewelry store lick. But because it was Lauren, he froze, and Effie knew that. She understood the rules of the game and she knew what had to be done. However, what have we learned when it comes to power? If you are an original OG power watcher, then you know there's never an off-screen death. Now, Effie's actions and Lauren's survival did set up the whole theme for Season 3, which was pretty much centered on betrayal. Both Effie and Braden were holding on to a secret which in essence was a ticking time bomb, which we saw early in Effie's eyes. She hated lying to Tariq because she cared about him, but she also couldn't bring herself to tell him the truth because she was scared of losing him, which was a strange place for her to be in because Effie is a super independent character who hates relying on others. So early on, Effie was facing a huge identity crisis. She was hiding the secret around Lauren. She was being questioned that she's not acting like herself. She wanted to be with Tariq, but she also wanted to be her own woman.
I just don't want to be known around Stansfield as just Tariq's girl. I want to be my own woman and have my own identity.
Effie's entire character is based on survival, independence, and securing her future. She had a safety number in mind to pay for her education, grad school in Cali, which she said would cost her around $50,000 a semester, and then she was out. She hated relying on people to get shit done, because if she hands over control to someone else, then she's not the one in charge anymore, and that's when you can't control the outcome. Imagine giving someone else control over your chessboard, then making moves for you, where you're not in control over where the queen ends up, or how you protect the king. It's why Effie was so dead set against Kane paying for her tuition, but we are going to get to their relationship in just a moment. Early on with Effie, the way she could stay in control over her future was by getting back in the drug game with Tariq, make her own money with a side hustle, pay for her own education, and work on her exit plan. But this was one of the many mysteries surrounding Effie's character. Everyone's had a mentor in the street game. With Tariq, we can look at him taking traits from Ghost, Tasha, Tommy, Kanan, and even at one point, Andre Coleman. For Kane Tejada, he grew up in the life and was nurtured to be the tough guy by Lorenzo and Monet. But where did Effie learn how to cut a brick or do what she does? We still don't know, and it was yet another example of Effie's street smarts. Although the same couldn't be said about Course Perfect. She had her own side hustle at Stansfield, but creating Course Perfect was literally an exact replica of Course Correct, which I don't think was such a good idea. Now the mysteries as well as unanswered questions don't stop at Effie's street smarts. One way in which you can keep people in line is by threatening family or loved ones. But unlike the rest of the crew, Effie was said to be an orphan, and even Obi couldn't dig up anything in regards to her background. It was said that she didn't come from a two-parent household. She's had to rely on financial assistance and loans to pay for her education, and she's also been sexually harassed. And just on a quick side note, this classroom scene really did paint the picture of the advantages and disadvantages some of us have had to grow up with. How some have had to work twice as hard to get to the same position as the other. How your background can determine where you start, but doesn't necessarily define where you finish, because that's down to you and what work you're willing to put in. So this brings me back to Effie's independence and her trying to protect her position by taking Lauren off the chessboard. She was going to do whatever it took to protect that secret, but Kane had other ideas. He loved fucking with Tariq, and knowing the secret around how Effie was the one who got rid of Lauren just played into his hands, although he did quickly come around to keeping her secret safe after what he went through with Lorenzo, and so Effie thought she was finally in the clear.
Spending time, not having to worry about shit that's going on in this crazy world with the girl that I love, sounds amazing to me.
Now this was way too good to be true. They were having way too much fun in Milan talking about their future, make-believes and fantasies, because that's all it was, a fantasy. Just like Ghost was living with Angela in Miami, this was always going to come crashing down. However, Effie did manage to find the secret to get out from under Noma's thumb, Anya Covington, and we are going to get to her in just a moment, because things were about to change for Effie. Lauren revealing herself to Tariq for the first time since her disappearance meant the secret was out. Tariq knew about the betrayal from not just Effie, but also Braden. They were kicked out of the business. Tariq also broke up with Effie, and also made no secret he was sleeping with Diana, which made Effie want to burn everything down to the ground. But that's when Kane stepped in. Now we have already been through an in-depth analysis of Kane's relationship with Effie in Kane's character breakdown, so I'm not going to repeat myself too much. But from Effie's perspective, she was feeling hurt, because for the first time in her life she let herself go and care about someone else other than herself. And the fact that Tariq couldn't see that Lauren had to be taken care of for the greater good, albeit Effie did it behind his back, that was a problem. And on this instance, I probably do have to side with Effie. She did what needed to be done because Tariq wouldn't. But did Effie get with Kane as a way to kind of get back at Tariq? Maybe that did have a bit of a part to play, because when Davis did go to visit her, there was a moment where she stopped him and asked about Tariq, but then she stopped short and then said never mind. So I do think Kane found himself at the right place at the right time, where Effie did kind of need someone to rely on, because without his help, even though she did refuse it, who knows what would have happened to her position at Stansfield, although once again, her world was set to turn upside down after her arrest. Seeing Lauren was like seeing a ghost, and she knew from this moment on, she was fucked. Everything she worked so hard to build was at risk, more so because she wasn't going to snitch or flip on anyone else to save herself. Now luckily for her, she did have Tariq in her corner, because she had something that Tariq needed, the details of Anya Covington. So to help himself and to also help the rest of the crew, he had to help Effie, which meant her meeting an old friend.
You've had every single golden opportunity in the world, and I was never jealous of that. But you decided to step out of your wide-ass, privileged-ass lane, and you threatened my future.
Unfortunately, this is the sad reality of the world we live in. The reason why Effie did what she did was because of two reasons that we've already been through. She was looking to protect her future, and also because Lauren was in the way when it came to Tariq. But let's put Tariq to one side for a moment. Let's have a look at growing up in the grimy street world that Effie has, versus the privileged circumstances with someone like Lauren. Lauren spoke about how difficult her life had been in the last few months, because of how Effie tried to get rid of her, but Effie's response was, cry since birth, because she's been through a lot. Like she said, where she's from, the game comes to her doorstep. She was also sexually abused by her mother's partner, as well as doing things she didn't necessarily want to do just to survive. Meanwhile, Lauren comes from a privileged upbringing, where she's had access to a lot more resources and opportunities. And if Lauren was standing in this class, I think she would have been nearer at the front compared to someone like Effie. So in Effie's mind, her move against Lauren wasn't personal, it was business, because she threatened her future, which I kind of do half agree with. It goes back to my point about Effie protecting her future, but I do also think part of her move was also personal, because she did want Tariq for herself, and she could only achieve that with Lauren out the way. Now, as much as Effie is a strong-minded character with what she's been through, power works in cycles. The tables had turned because the ball was now in Lauren's court, and had it not been for Kane threatening Lauren with her parents, Lauren could have testified against Effie, which could have led to the entire drug organization being brought down. So it was a moment where Effie was very vulnerable, and unlike one of her character traits, she did have to rely on others who she had broken ties with to help her out of this orange jumpsuit. Now, just before we get to her being released from jail, one question I did have was when we saw 309 was, who was Effie's lawyer that she mentioned? She mentioned that she had a lawyer of her own, and she didn't need Davis's help, so I do wonder who it was, and it is just something to keep in mind in season 4. Now, after learning that Tariq wasn't just going to go back to normal, which I don't blame him for, Effie did what she does best, survive. And in this moment, she thought the very best way to protect her future is to team up directly with Noma by telling her that her daughter Anya Covington was in danger. But this is where I also have to kind of disagree with Effie's move, and where I'm going to kind of pick out some holes in it. She always had a safety number in mind. She's wanted to go to grad school in Cali and get out of the game. But by her getting closer to Noma, she's done the complete opposite. She's now deeper in the street game than she's ever been. I guess she was making a move to kind of protect herself and her future, but that's not what she wants from her future, or at least it's not what she was telling Tariq. And this brings me on to a theory for season 4. I recently put a post up on X where I gave a couple of early predictions for Effie's character, with one of them being, I think she'll eventually come back onto Team Tariq to bring down Noma. And I'm not gonna lie, it did kind of raise a few eyebrows, because why would Tariq ever trust Effie? The short answer is, he wouldn't. He knows he can't trust her, but would he work with her for the greater good to kind of bring down a common enemy? Most definitely. And that's what I think will eventually happen. I don't think there'll ever be love interests again. I think that ship has long sailed, especially after she was with Kane. I don't think they'll ever be best friends again, but I do see them working together to reach a common goal, because as I mentioned before, both of them have very similar goals in terms of leaving the street game. So I do think there is a bit of a twist here. So can I see Effie and Tariq working together again? Most definitely, but only to work together to kind of take down a common enemy, which could be Noma. Now, elsewhere with my predictions, I also said we'll get introduced to Effie's mother after those details about her past was revealed, and this ties into Obi not being able to find anything on Effie, but there was a small clue on someone else who might.
I'll finish digging in some Rouse's records.
Junior Valdez was said to be looking into Effie's records, and when he does, he's going to find Effie's drunk mother, and I wouldn't be surprised if law enforcement use this as a weak link to target Effie with. I also feel like if we get introduced to her mother, then we may just finally learn the name of her brother who was killed in a robbery gone wrong, and whether they tie this story into Power, who knows. Something I would love to see them do is, maybe when her and Kane are talking in season 4, Kane opens up about how his first kill was a stupid botched hit in a robbery gone wrong, where he ended up getting rid of someone who he wasn't supposed to, which happens to have only been Effie's brother. I personally think it would add a nice little complication to this relationship and this whole dynamic with Effie working with Kane and the Tejadas. Now on their relationship, I've already made my feelings clear. I do feel like the feelings are only one way, which is more so from Kane's side, with Kane eventually being banned, but let's see. Let's see how it goes, because if the relationship actually does benefit Effie in some shape or form, then you can definitely see her riding with it, because after all, it is all about survival. Although the theory around Kane potentially being behind Effie's brother's death, it really would add a nice little complication and twist. But that's a breakdown and the evolution of Effie's character, and where we are at this moment in time with a couple of theories based on the evidence, facts and findings. So the floor is now yours. Let me know what you guys think and where you see Effie's character heading. Do you think she could work with Tariq again for the greater good? What happens with their relationship with Kane? And will we learn more about her backstory? Drop all your thoughts, predictions and theories down below in the comment section. And as always, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.